Okay, now it's all, okay, now we're good.
There we go.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January meeting of the Planning Commission. We'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, before we get started with our business, we have the mayor with us this evening that would like to make some comments.
Very august body up here. Ms. Turnquist, welcome to the board as an alternate, and your services, your input will be warranted. And Dan, it's good to see you here in action. First time here, but I'd like to introduce Mr. President, Mr. Commissioner, that our staff, Ajila, Ahad, Shah, Hassan. We have practiced that too. And Chris Jakubiak, who is our outside consultant. I just wanted to formally introduce them to you, that they have passed muster and they're wonderful people and terrific planning backgrounds. So I hope you'll have a good meeting. I'm going to dismiss myself from here.
Okay,
The intrigue,
You're-
you'll take care.
you're
Best.
welcome to watch. You can stick around to watch if you wish. But yeah, I just want to echo the comments of the mayor. We welcome our new town planner, Najila Hassan, and our contract planner, Chris, and our new alternate, Valerie Turnquist, and our new planning board member, Dan Garnetz.
Right.
Yeah, Garnetz. Welcome all. Welcome, everyone. So the first item on our agenda this evening is our reorganization. So we have to elect a new chairperson, a new vice chairperson, and secretary. So for the first piece, for electing the new chairperson, I'll be turning it over to the town planner for that piece until that person's elected, and then the new chairperson will take over again.
So, hi everyone, I'm Najila, so we're happy to be here. So at this time, I'll ask the members of the Planning Commission for their nomination for the chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Mark Long for chairperson.
You may ask if there's any other nominations.
Is there any other nominations? Sorry.
And then hearing none, I guess you can call for a vote.
You don't even have to call for a vote.
Well, yeah, I guess you don't actually.
Yeah, there's no vote. You're it.
Okay.
You don't need no vote.
Okay,
Sort of, yeah,
Oh,
by unanimous
okay.
So
consent.
hearing no other
That's- yeah,
nominations,
I guess it's
There's-
consent.
okay.
Mark is it.
Okay.
So can we still like officially take a vote, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
All for Mr. Mark Long.
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. So we'll move on to electing a vice chairperson. So do I hear nominations for vice chairperson? I'd like to renominate Kevin Hagan. Any other nominations? I guess you were also unanimously, so just to make it official, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving right along here. Nominations for a new secretary.
I guess in keeping with tradition, I'll nominate Dan Getz.
And no, new man all night gets it.
That has been the tradition.
You may regret this. I'm lousy at this, you realize.
Well, we'll help you along, but are there any other nominations for secretary before we move along? So all in favor of electing Dan as our new secretary, say aye. Or
Aye.
any opposed? Okay, then we have myself as the chairperson, Kevin as vice chair, and Dan as secretary. Thank you all. So moving on to approval of the minutes for October 25. Any comments about the minutes from that meeting?
No, I thought they looked good.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 25, 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we have public comment. So if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make any comments, besides the folks that are actually on the agenda, now's your chance. No one? Okay. There is no old business, so we're going to move on to the new business. First item is amendment of approved site plan and approved forest conservation plan for Rudder Store at the southeast corner of Maryland Route 140 and Maryland Route 15. The applicant is seeking to abandon a forest conservation easement from the approved site plan that would allow the applicant to remove forest on the property now protected by easement. The Planning Commission's approval of the forest conservation plan was certified by signature of the Planning Commission Chairman on December 21st, 2020. So any comments by staff?
I'll have Mr. Chris Kubiak talk about the staff memo.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So I wanted to take you through the proposal and along the way, talk a little bit about the Forest Conservation Ordinance and what your role is in administering it. So the town has a Forest Conservation Ordinance, and it's a law that's consistent with the state law that deals with forest conservation too. So there's really two, both state and local law. And it requires that at the time of site plan approval, that the Planning Commission approve a forest conservation plan for the development site. At the same time, you approve the site plan itself. And this topic concerns the Rutter's Truck Stop and Convenience Store, 15 and 140. And as you know, that site has obviously been approved and it's open for business now. Part of that project approval included a forest conservation plan, and it preserved through an easement a stretch of forest that ran along a perennial stream that runs through the property down to Flat Run, which is in the southern part of the property. The applicant would like to lift that easement, remove the easement in order to remove the trees. And the initial proposal that the town received was that the applicant would pay a fee to the town in lieu of the easement. Now, instead of preserving the trees on the property, they would pay a fee to the town, and the town would use those funds as part of its forest conservation fund to plant street trees or do other forest conservation work. There's a little hitch here, though. First, the hitch with respect to state law. In 2019, the law changed and requires that before a town accepts fee in lieu monies, the applicant has to exhaust the opportunity to buy forest bank credits. So an applicant has to first figure out how to preserve forest in these forest banks that are scattered throughout the county. A forest bank is really just an existing forest or one that's being planted, and the owner agrees to preserve it in perpetuity through an easement. So in exchange for that, the owner sells credits, and so that there's incentive to preserve forest. So the law changed in 2019, and it favors the forest bank approach to preservation over payment of fee in lieu. Apparently, some municipalities weren't using their fees in lieu, and they were actually incentivizing their developers rather than preserving forest on site. Just give us the money, and that is counter to the spirit of the law, and now it's counter to the letter of the law. So that means that the applicant doesn't have necessarily the option of paying fee in lieu, and thus the applicant finds that they can't buy credits. The town is in the process of doing the very same thing. It would be much easier for the town to to pay fee in lieu, to transfer funds into the fee in lieu program itself. But because it's doing its clarifier plan at the wastewater treatment facility, it actually has to do the same thing, and it will have to buy credits, and is actually shopping and negotiating prices right now. So they're out there and they're available. So I don't know that fee in lieu is going to be a viable opportunity. Although we hold out the possibility the applicant may be persuasive and demonstrate that it's impossible. But before you even get to the question of whether to pay a fee in lieu or preserve forest through forest banking, you have to protect priority forests on site. That's the number one priority of the forest conservation law, town and state. And if you don't do that, you have to first you have to demonstrate why you can't. Then you also have to, and you saw in my staff report, there are kind of 3 steps. Then you have to plant on the property itself. If I have to remove this stand of forest, I have to then plant somewhere else on the property. And if you can't do both of those, then you have the option of doing forest bank or forest banking or payment of fee in lieu. So that's where we find ourselves tonight. And the applicant has Joe Seshi is here, and he's going to take it slow and explain everything. And if you have any questions of us or the applicant, please, don't hesitate, and we're here to assist.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Chris or?
I have
Najila?
questions. So regarding fee in lieu of,
Yes.
what's the total fund currently in the town's fee in lieu of? What's the total balance?
So the total balance is $9,386.14.
And how much has been distributed in the last 12 months?
So back in April 22, there was a plan to do a tree planting, which Barton and La Judas helped us with,
Mhm.
but it's just at the planning phase right now. So no trees have been planted using that fund yet.
Okay, and where are the trees planned to be if it were to happen?
That I don't know for sure, but I can look that up.
Okay.
I haven't seen the plan myself, so
Okay,
yeah.
so we aren't using the fund.
Any other questions for Chris or Najila?
I guess I do have a question.
Okay.
Excluding what you just discussed, what the current law as of 2019, what was going to be the fee in lieu cost to the applicant had they had the ability to do that? If we went back, and said, okay, you don't need this forest conservation plan, to remove those trees, what was that dollar amount going to be?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen the calculations for it, and I haven't done it independently. So I don't know what the math works out to. I'm certain the applicant probably has the number because they would have to be prepared for it, but I don't have the answer now.
I remember we discussed this at a earlier town meeting with the Board of Commissioners, and I didn't jot it down. Memory serves me correct. It was somewhere in the 20,000s, but I don't have the actual number. So,
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Oh, would the applicant like to make any comments?
Good evening, I'm Joe Cece with Fox and Associates, and Tim Bieber's here with Rudders also. To address the fee in lieu question, it's just over $21,000. And banking, to purchase banking, we have just an estimate, it would be a few $1,000s more. So I think for the applicant, it's a wash, it's not a big deal. To go banking or fee in lieu. I think they offered fee in lieu when they met with the commission a few months ago because the town, at that time, the town planner suggested it, that he wanted it. So applicant doesn't have a, either way.
Right, we started down this road probably at least 6 months ago. And when we had conversations with Zach, he had made us aware that there were some projects that the town was pursuing. And the fee in lieu of might be an opportunity to be able to put those funds to use.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on that?
So what's your case for wanting to remove the trees?
So from our standpoint, when this was delineated as a conservation area, it was identified as one in poor quality. And I think there is a distinction between the two forest stands that are out there. Along Flat Run, it's a mature forest. It's in pretty good shape, and it I think it ends up being a very suitable buffer for the Flat Run. The tributary that runs down through, we recognized that potentially we were going to have a problem with visibility, not only just to be able to see our store, but you can see through that, but you can't fully see through that. So from our standpoint, it presents a visibility problem as well as potentially a safety problem. You're driving north on 15, you can kind of see something, so you're kind of your attention's diverted. You're trying to do that. From our perspective, having a clear line of sight not only provides us visibility to the store, but I believe it also enhances the safety from that particular standpoint, giving that high visibility. It is, many of you probably have been out there. You can tell there is a difference in the stand between what's on the Flat Run and what is on that tributary. It's just, weather will probably take it down at some point in time if we don't.
So I know I've been traveling on many highways at different points in time and would come up on intersections where there would be stores.
Wayfinding signs.
Say again?
Wayfinding signs.
Well, that's not where I was going. But I know the convenience stores or gas stations aren't always visible from the highway. I mean, quite often they'll have very large signs to let you know that there's something there, but it
Yes.
may be a half a mile off the intersection. So I don't know how the visibility of your store, your specific store, is that relevant.
It is, to me, it is. And if this were not a historic town with regulations on signs that dictate size, height, there would be a much bigger sign at our location.
Was that the maximum size you were allowed by town ordinance?
It took a variance to get that size.
Any other comments by
Yeah.
commissioners, questions?
A lot. So if the town were to reconsidering giving you a variance for a larger sign, would that be something you'd want to pursue? Or are you retired with the last round that took you?
I mean, we would always consider a larger sign. It gets a little difficult to swallow in the fact that we've already put in a sign and
Right.
expended capital to do something which we would then take down and replace. The other thing where you were, I thought you were headed was like wayfinding signs.
Well, that is another option, yeah.
It is another option. In Maryland, it has to be a designated corridor which allows wayfinding signs.
Okay.
And the 15
15
corridor is not one that does allow that. Trust me. if it
Okay,
was-
I'm sure you looked into it.
So we do have, just to, you all have a copy of the plan. So
Yes.
there is other forest retention areas on site in the floodplain, and there is about an acre of planting on site. What we're proposing now, and I think the first option, if we remove this, is to do planting. That would be just detrimental. It'd be just we'd be doing what we're trying to undo. So that's why we're kind of not offering the additional planting. It would pretty much fill up that lot there.
Mhm.
So with removing these trees, considering that there's a stream there, what would be the erosion impact?
I don't think you're going to be removing stumps, so, and roots.
Right, we wouldn't want to go in and basically tear up the stream banks. I would envision what we would do is they would be cut at a certain height above root line, and the stumps would remain.
And the stumps and the grasses, those plants are what, pretty much holds the soil in place.
Now, what about it? When I walk the line of sight, it's at what angle? You're looking like a 60% angle from, say, your sign to be visible from 15?
I'm not quite.
So if you take, I'm sorry, so if I have 15 here and my sign is here, you want visibility coming up here because you already don't have it from the stream bank. At what angle do you want to be able to see?
Ideally, as you cross Flat Run, we're looking to have
Okay.
visibility in. Because you're moving at a relatively high rate of
Right.
speed. And so every bit of distance that you get, I think, helps us for visibility as well as a driver traveling along
Right.
Route 15, be able to make that decision that he wants to get off on 140.
So it would seem to me if someone's traveling north on Route 15, they'd have to make the decision to turn off before they are seeing rudders.
What we're asking for, they have a little bit of time after they cross Flat Run before they have to get over into that.
Very
exit.
little.
And that's where we're saying it would be beneficial.
Yeah. I'm certainly appreciative of what you're trying to do and to get more visibility. Just philosophically, I do not like taking down trees, no matter where they are, what purpose they have. I know the one forest stand along the tributary is not great forest by any means, but there are some fairly mature trees there. The town, even though we haven't used a lot of the fee in lieu, we have gone to great lengths to plant thousands and thousands of trees along the sewage treatment plant for one and other areas. So taking down existing trees kind of goes against, the general trend of most places, including Emmitsburg, of trying to get as much tree canopy as possible. And I particularly don't like taking down trees along any kind of stream, no matter how minor it may be. And I realize this is a very minor tributary. But, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation gave the Chesapeake Bay another grade of D this year. No, this does not have a huge impact on the bay, but every little piece makes an impact. So I am never inclined to allow trees to be taken down in any situation. Now, if there had been a forest right where you were planting the rudders, obviously, some other accommodations would have to be made, but you're already built, you're in business. I was there today and could barely find a parking place. It was so busy. I mean, almost every pump was filled when I arrived, and every parking space, except for 2, were filled. So, I think you're doing pretty well. That's just my thought at this point. And you also had truckers that obviously weren't local folks. There were 7, 8 semis there when I was there. Of course, I understand that's one spot in time, and it may not always be that way, obviously. But that's just my feeling. Thoughts?
I mean, from where you're talking, the change, doing 60 miles an hour, it's not going to make a difference. Honestly, in brake speed, and when you got to turn, you're talking,
It gives about 370 feet of additional.
Yeah.
distance.
that's
Not much.
300 feet isn't a huge amount. And Chris, are there any state regulations that we need to be concerned about waterways that would come in here with the stream?
The principal state regulation is the same regulation that we have in a forest conservation ordinance. It implements state regulation, and that is that forest along streams are priority forest, and you only eliminate them if you pass certain tests, which are enumerated on page 2 of the staff memo. So,
I just, they couldn't bulldoze over.
well, no, of course not. They couldn't without proper permits.
Yeah.
So but that's not what they're proposing to
no.
do.
Mm.
Yeah. They wouldn't pave it. They wouldn't bulldoze it. They wouldn't grade in the stream. They would simply remove the taller trees that are in the forest. Yeah.
Any other questions for applicants before we go to a vote?
Not to the applicant, no.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
I believe we have a representative on Zoom as well. Is that
Oh,
while you're
so commissioners, thoughts? Any other thoughts?
I think like you, cutting down trees for 300 feet of runway at 60 miles an hour. It pushes hard on me. If you said it was 1,200 feet, it's a different thing. 300 feet or a place that I hope will grow on a stream.
What about putting the rudder signage on the blue highway sign? Where it says food coming up, lodging
you-
coming up. There is one of those. Could you add it to that sign prior to the exit?
We asked SHA and they do not consider
Down a
50 a
notice.
designated corridor, and so we can't go on.
But there's already a sign there with the McDonald's and
We
Hotel.
requested,
Yeah, that's,
and I
State
don't
high.
know if perhaps that sign preceded
it did.
the regulations.
It did by a long, long time.
So I know there's signs along Route 15 where like you drive down to Thurmont, there's a sign that tells you where the winery is. Like at Catoctin Breeze, and there's other signs for like wineries and breweries. I mean, so I don't understand that state regulation.
I
I
do not
do.
either, but again, we apply in every location that
Yeah.
we go at with the new store, and we were advised that we're not
I may want to recommend you talk to the Emmitsburg Business Association, who has strong ties with the highway administration that controls this area because he lives in Fairfield.
Any other thoughts from commissioners?
I have one.
Yes.
I understand what the two of you are saying. Some great points there. I guess my main point, and I don't even know if this is a valid point, but I'm looking at what was told to the applicant by the prior planner, and for all intents and purposes, might have been misguided direction regarding that fee in lieu. So I have a question for staff then because of that.
Okay.
What are the legal implications? Are there any legal implications because of this 2019 law that we have not been following for this applicant or prior applicants in seeking fee in lieu instead of the
Right. Well,
other options first?
I can't really offer opinions on legal matters. I can answer that, but I can procedurally, we have to require applicants that are not approved, or in this case, seeking an amendment, we have to apply the law moving forward. For applicants that were approved by the planning commission at some time, if there's a question, that should be referred to the town attorney. But certainly moving forward, and this is a moving forward because we have someone amending an approved forest conservation plan, we apply the law as written.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we already approved their forest conservation plan. We did that in 2020.
Yes.
And just to be clear, in 2020, maybe the guidance provided by the town planner was accurate because maybe it didn't go into effect immediately. This was 2019 when the General Assembly passed this bill. So in 2020, it's still, at the time, it may not have even been in effect, but it is in effect now. And again, it's, the only difference is that it favors forest banking over, well, there's another slight distance. In order for the town to have a forest conservation plan and continue to use it, it's got to be approved by Department of Natural Resources. But these are things that we'd actually like to talk with you about in concert or in combination with other zoning
Okay.
text amendments that we feel are necessary. We've coordinated with the town attorney. We want to start bringing amendments to you to update codes as
Yeah.
necessary.
Great.
Now, here's, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
another question. Could this board make a recommendation to the town of commissioners to change or give a variance for the sign? Because they were screwed basically on their sign.
I thought we heard that they did obtain a variance.
For their sign, but their sign's not the normal height that one of their gas stations would have.
Okay. Well,
And we would have to change the town code or say the commissioners would have to give a variance. I don't, I'm not giving you the impression that, oh, they can do it. It would have to be a change. What I'm asking is, can this board send a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners?
You're talking about sign on 15?
Yes.
this planning commission can always make recommendations to the planning commission. They're best when they're not focused on one individual applicant, but if you see a need for modernized sign regulations or more signage for businesses, certainly it's within your, or you can direct staff to begin drafting amendments and bringing it to you for your revisions. But you can certainly go to pass a resolution asking for the Board of Town Commissioners to look into the matter. But just to be clear, that should be separate from the
Yeah.
very distinct decision you have to make
Right.
tonight. There's no trading of regulations. Can't compromise one to offer another. And it's only the Board of Appeals that can offer a variance.
Any other thoughts from commissioners?
No, just basically reiterating basically what you, Kevin, have said basically about preserving the forest and water quality, et cetera. I'm just not real burning basically the idea of cutting down forest and the whole replanting thing. I just think the original forest probably is gonna be a better stream buffer than basically trying to plant something new. So that's my own take on it.
One suggestion that was included in the memo was if there was removal of trees, potentially a substitute could be lower height shrubs that, like I said, we've got a poor condition forest, and we could replace that with something in better shape that would potentially serve both needs.
And I had read that in the paperwork and given that some thought, and it may have some merit, but I still don't know that it's a substitute for the trees, with the mature trees. Even though, they aren't, it's not the greatest forest by any stretch, but there are mature trees that do more work than probably the shrubs would do. So, do we have a motion one way or another?
I'll make a motion to deny the approval, the site plan change or amendment to the approval of the site plan of the approved forest conservation plan.
We have a motion to deny the request to amend the
Second.
forest conversation. I heard a second from somebody.
Dan seconded.
Dan, you have a second from Dan. So we have a motion and a second to deny the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So we have four,
4-1.
4 to 1.
Yeah.
Sorry, gentlemen. But I was part of the commission here when we approved the new sign ordinance, and there was a lot of discussion and debate. And I
Okay.
must admit, I, for one, did not realize the implications that that would have for a situation like this. I mean, that sign seems inadequate, quite frankly.
I would agree.
And I'll admit that. You know, you go down to Thurmont at the first intersection there at 550, the Burger King has this huge monster sign, you know, 60, 70 feet up in the air. The hotel next door has a similar sign way up in the air. I'm not sure how we arrived at this, quite frankly, and I'd be willing to take another look at that.
Yeah, I can tell you that the Business Association of Evansburg is currently looking to revamp a lot of the sign ordinances. And you may want to get in touch with them and say, hey, can,
We could certainly do that. Just from our perspective, that was actually a revision of the sign ordinance that probably happened 2 to 3
2 years ago.
which, took away some of the restrictions that were in place. I think from a sign perspective, what I look at is, I understand the intent, the historic preservation and the historic appeal of the town, but you could almost say that part of the town is not part of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
we 100%.
And to have the the regulations apply universally across it creates some inequity in the particular uses that are.
I think rules for a residential zone shouldn't be rules for a commercial zone.
Especially a commercial zone on the other side of the highway. from the
Yeah.
Historic part of town.
And that's why I said you may want to reach out to the Business Alliance here, since they're going to propose some changes and say, hey, what do you think of this?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wish you well. Our next item of business is amendment of the approved site plan and request for final approval of the approved improvement plans for site and for the extension of Creamery Court, Federal Stone Industries, Emmitsburg East Industrial Park 2. The applicant is seeking to amend an approved site plan, the approval of which was certified by signature of the Planning Commission Chairman on May 31st, 2022. The amendment relates to the applicant's decision to change the building that was shown on the approved site plan. Final approval of the improvement plans for the site and for the extension of Creamery Court are also required. So staff, any comments?
So there are 3 documents on the agenda,
Mhm.
the rolled up documents that I gave you. Also, I also passed out a sheet of paper that's the progress report that addresses the comments made by the town engineer.
Mhm.
I'll have Chris Kuvia talk about his memo.
Okay, thanks. So this application is an amendment to an approved site plan. That's the first part of this. It's straightforward. It had some ripple effects. And the applicant will explain the actual building configuration, how it was changed. The change is actually quite modest. But nevertheless, it is a change. And the zoning ordinance as it is requires that we bring these amendments to you. One of the changes that we're going to advise you on is to allow the staff to administratively amend these minor changes so the applicants can move forward and open their businesses rather than waiting for this time. Where there's substantive or material changes, then would obviously be brought to the Planning Commission. But that's an idea that we'd like to talk with you about at a future date. But the second part of this is the improvements plan. And the improvements plan, your review and approval there is still necessary, but your approval is really administrative, almost ministerial. It's saying, okay, we find that the town engineer is satisfied, the staff is satisfied. We're going to allow the chair to sign off on the plans. You're not equipped, and we're not even equipped to review the details of that are embedded within the improvements plan, which is really just an engineering report. And we don't have our town engineer here tonight. He doesn't normally present here at the meetings. Then the last one is the improvement plan for Creamery Road Extended. And again, that's an engineering document. And we understand that the engineers have worked through the whole list and are moving forward through that. So our recommendation would be your approval of each of these with the condition that final approval by the chair and the mayor be withheld until staff is satisfied that all the conditions are met. Because as I said, Public Works is still making sure that all the comments are addressed as well. So, and that process won't take long, but that's just an administrative process that has to take place. So.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant, I can't talk this evening, applicant like to make any comments?
You just turned it off.
Brandon Rethmeyer, Vice President and owner of Federal Stone Industries. So I know you have a lot of paper there to kind of go through and to look at. The one thing I at least wanted to bring to your attention was it's in your half sheets, was just the expectation of what the change was that we went ahead and did. So as everybody's aware, it's very, very busy or difficult to try to keep up with all the budgetary constraints and things that are going on with raw material costs and labor. So we initially had a 40,000 square foot building that was in the one area that now we've changed and had to downsize that building. So it now turned into two separate buildings, all within the same footprint that the 40,000 square foot building was. So the initial site plan, everything that's been approved, none of that changed, driveway access, street trees, all that stayed. It was basically the box that the 40,000 square foot building was going to be in is now separated into like a 5,000 square foot office and a 30,000 square foot manufacturing facility, and then some outdoor storage area that we have there also. So we just had to make decisions on what gets cut from the budget. And so you can just see now in your, I believe it's one of your last pages there, just a CAD rendering of what the expectation and the building orientations are going to be. Because I know we presented a very nice high glossy expectation of what the initial building was going to look like, and that now has since changed. So we're in the process of getting you another CAD or another rendering, nice photo of what it's going to be. But for now, at least you can see how the building is going to be oriented there. So also did want to make you aware of Bob Barrick and Mike Wiley from Piedmont. They're here to discuss any of the engineering questions you have. That's their scope of work. So everything that they've at least put forth there is at least the initial effort within the last week or two from receiving the comments. So you can see that they certainly are taking it seriously to try to get this moving along for you guys. If there's any other building questions for me, but engineering questions for them, please.
Any questions for the applicant?
No change in the,
Chris?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. You may have thought about the same thing, but just to be clear, the change doesn't affect the amount of traffic headed to the site or the number of employees employed or the amount of noise or operational issues you may have on the site.
No changes there. No.
Everything of substance was addressed in the original approved site plan. Nothing's being changed of any material
Correct.
nature.
Correct. Just building size had to be decreased in order to fit within the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
can I ask the same kind of questions there? And there's been no response from the fire department to say, does this make a difference to them?
Any other questions from commissioners for the applicant?
No, it's straightforward.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Any more discussion? So we actually have 3 approvals or disapprovals, but so we'll, vote on each one singularly. So do I hear a motion to approve or a motion about the amendment of the approved site plan and approved site plan? This is the first one.
May I suggest that adding that with the condition that
Yeah.
it's addressed there in the
Yeah,
staff.
I did have I knew I had a question though. So all the conditions that the engineer has laid out, I mean, that's a fair amount of conditions. You're comfortable with approving that administratively after we take this vote this evening?
Yes, and it's not unusual. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the final review of the engineer and the final collaboration between the two sets of engineers, so they work out the issues. It's typical that those are handled administratively after you do your work as a planning commission anyway.
Yeah.
And as you see, there's been a lot of progress already addressing those technical questions.
So can we just approve it and or deny it and say with approval of the town engineers recommendations?
Yeah, or
Okay.
approval with condition that the applicant address the improvement plan comments.
I was going to go ahead and take a
Yeah.
crack at that. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Please do.
I'll make a motion to approve Federal Stone Industries revised site plan with the condition that the applicant address the site plan review comments set forth in the town engineer's memorandum dated January 12th, 2023, and obtain all necessary county, state, and federal approvals.
Very good. And do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve with the condition that the applicant address the site plan review comments set forth in the town engineer's memorandum dated January 12th, 2023, and obtain all necessary county, state, and federal approvals. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And then moving on to the improvement plan. Do we have a motion? You did so well with the first one.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah. Roll it over.
I'll make a motion to approve Federal Stone Industries improvements plan with the condition that the applicant address the improvement plan comments set forth in the town engineer's memorandum of January 12th, 2023, and obtain all necessary county, state, and federal approvals.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the improvement plan with all the conditions outlined in the town engineer's memorandum. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries unanimously. And then on to the improvement plan for Creamery Court Extended.
Really?
Why not? Just give it go, man.
I'll make a motion to approve Federal Stone Industries improvements plan for Creamery Road Extended with the condition that the applicant address the improvement plan review comments set forth in the town engineer's memorandum of January 12th, 2023, and obtain all necessary county, state, and federal approvals.
We have a motion to hear a second.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve with conditions the improvement plan for Creamery Court. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Wish you well. And I know those building costs are going up, so good luck.
Just put, lots of people are putting pools in.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I just had a question. When are you looking to break ground and get all this rolling?
We're discussing with the SBA right now to figure out the financing of everything.
Okay.
Builder is still, like I said, going from the 40,000 square foot building, which was semi-custom, I would say, to now fitting into pre-engineered sizes and something that was, which is why the building had to be reduced for fast track. engineering
Okay.
purposes. So he's still kind of finalizing all of the construction costs, but it's tough for us to say. The goal would be summertime.
Okay. I was just curious. All right. That's fine. I'm not gonna hold you to it. Okay. It's all good. Thanks.
Oh, I did have one other question. Lots 5 and 6, do you still own them or did you sell those?
We're still in a contract.
Okay, okay. There's a lot going on out there.
There's a licensing agreement that he's under currently.
Okay,
We're trying to get-
okay, thank you. And then our final piece of business is a proposed zoning text amendment for a discussion concerning the height of boundary fences along the street frontage on corner lots. So staff, any comments?
So I'll jump right in. Um, This is, I don't want to get too far into weeds
Yeah,
on this.
yeah.
So let me just ask you to turn to the last page of the staff report on this
Okay.
item. It's page 5 of 5.
Yeah.
It's kind of a rough visual graphic. It actually shows the address of 4,000 Carrick Court. And it's at the intersection of Brookfield Drive and Carrick Court. And the yellow line around that lot shows the property boundaries. The black dashed line shows the 35-yard setback, 35 foot front yard setback. So by code, when you have a corner lot, you have 2 front yards because your lot faces 2 streets and it's considered a front yard. And the yards, a yard is a space that has to be free and clear of buildings. So when we say there's a 35-foot front yard required, we mean from the yellow line inward on the lot to the black line that has to be free and clear of buildings. Or another way of saying it is you can put your building as close to the street as the black line, that dashed line, okay? That's the building setback line. And everything between the building setback line and the yellow line is called the front yard. When the Turnquist applied for a fence that exceeded 4 feet, the zoning administrator determined that the town zoning administrator determined that the fence had to be behind that black line, right? I mean, that was sort of the setback line, but that's not really what the zoning ordinance calls for. If it were a building, yes. If it was the house, yes, it had to be behind that line. But a fence can be as close as the property line on one side of one side of the street on a corner lot. And the code says that as long as the fence doesn't encroach closer to the front of the lot, not the front yard, but the front of the lot, closer than the house, you're okay. So if you see that red line, I extended it from the corner of the house towards the street. The blue line is the fence. The fence is there. It can extend, or it can be there, but it can't extend closer to Carrick Court than that red line. So it can't get forward than the building. As it turns out, the Turnquist's fence stops at the rear corner of their house, right? I mean, theoretically, under the current code, they could extend it another 30 feet or so to the front corner. Which is to say that the way the code is written now would be fine with their Turnquists, presumably. I don't want to speak for them, but they would have been able to have gotten their permit. They should have been able to get their permit without the troubles that they went through. And I'm not interpreting the code in any way that's meant to be favorable or unfavorable, just reading it very carefully about what the terms mean as defined in the code. And that's okay. What we're suggesting is that the code actually be improved a little bit so that future residents don't encounter this, because the average layperson reads the code and they're going to struggle. Then the zoning administrator has to look at it and say, well, what's the definition of yard? How is it different from front of lot? Is it a front yard, front of lot? Well, not really, according to the definitions, but it takes some time to decipher that. So what we'd like to suggest, and this is what the Board of Town Commissioners said, we'd like you to present a text amendment to the Planning Commission, see what they think, and then send it to us and we'll work on it. So the text amendment is begun on page 2 of this memo. And it would really first, but before I go into the text amendment, any questions on what I've said so far? In terms of what the code allows now?
Actually, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you misquoted some of it.
Okay,
The initial issue on this, and I was on the board when this came up. The current law states that a front yard may not have a fence higher than 4 foot.
Right.
Tornquist's fence is one of those staggering ones, goes between 5 and 6 foot, which is where the violation came in.
yes.
And then their problem was that they didn't apply to the zoning properly. And they put the fence up without proper permit, which is a whole different issue.
Right.
So the zoning inspector went out and said they're in violation of the 4 foot height fence. Because they weren't aware of the 2 front yard issue, and the current ordinance states if you're in a front yard, you may not have a fence higher than 4 foot, period. Any front yard. And since the corner lots defined as 2 front yards, that means that their fence cannot be more than 4 foot high. That was the original issue of this, that started this process 6, 8 months ago. And Valerie and her husband are here.
Right.
Then the board of appeals was hearing this. I said, well, wait a minute, you're right. This, as you stated, this ordinance is a little strange. It works fine for the small lots, but through lots, with a lot of people were quoting about the through lots on Irish Town Road, where their backs face Irish Town Road and so forth, and through many current lots in Brookville and in Benbrook. So we said, okay, we need to amend this amendment to allow exceptions of having to go through all the variance crap and everything every time someone wants to put a higher fence up there. That's what started this whole thing back in last November, whenever, no, June, I guess it was now. May or June when this started.
So, thank you, Dan. So putting aside the issue of not having had the permit.
Right.
But it sounds like staff have taken another look at the ordinance because they have now said that the fence is okay. According to this letter from the town attorney.
Yes.
The new ordinance, yes.
But that's without a new ordinance.
No, that's with the new ordinance.
No,
Oh.
there's been no ordinance.
There's no new ordinance.
The old ordinance is the existing ordinance. There's no change yet. We looked at the ordinance with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And really took our time and actually brought in the town attorney. And our conclusion is that the ordinance as written allows fences over 4 foot within, on one side of a corner lot. And it requires that corner lots, that a decision be made on corner lots. What is the front of the lot and what is the side of the lot? And the front of the lot by code is the lot that is the narrowest side or less width.
The address.
And that's typically the side that the house faces. That's the case with the Tornquists. So the other side, in this case along Brookfield, is the side lot. And there's no restriction to fences in the side lot, except that they can't be taller than 6 feet. But so they can go over 4, and you obviously have to be on your own property. So that's what the code says now. And regretfully, we didn't get to that sooner. And it went through a Board of Appeals process, but the Board of Appeals struggled with it. As you saw, they said, we're struggling, these terms, it doesn't make sense. So we really began investing a lot of time in figuring this out. Now, I will say that it's not uncommon for jurisdictions to establish that fences have to be behind the setback line, like I talked about earlier. So, but Emmitsburg's code allows fences in the side yard to go forward. So to go up to the property line. And we wanted or 6 foot fences to go up to the property line. But so our suggestion for amending the code just is meant to clarify this. So it's easier for someone to pick up and say, oh, I have the right to do that. Or for someone sitting in our seat to say, oh, there it is. It's right there. I don't have to go figure out all these definitions and piece this decision together. It'll be clearer to me. So that's our attempt. Well, I say our involving the town attorneys to share with you a proposal. And that's on page 2 of this.
Okay.
So, so what showing here is actually a new section. It would be called 1740-060, and we would call it allowable projection of fences over 4 feet high on corner lots. So it's pretty clear. So if we get an application like this, we know this is the Torquist amendment. So for establishing the allowable location of fences over 4 feet high on corner lots, comma, the front of the lot shall be established consistent with the definition of the term lot front of, which is in section 1704020. And no fence shall be permitted there. Okay, so in other words, you look and see which one is the front, and you can't put a fence in the front of a lot. Such fence, meaning fence over 4 foot tall, may be permitted along the side, not qualifying as the front, provided the fence shall not extend closer to the established front of the lot than the nearest front corner of the principal building. And that illustration there shows you how this actually would work. And actually, we think it's worthwhile having an illustration in the code. Make it very clear. So, and I wanted to show you here, the red lines, again, is 2 arrows pointing to those red lines.
Just a point of information, we don't have any color on our graphs. So
Oh,
it's all
goodness.
black and white, at least on mine.
I am
Well,
colorblind,
listen,
so it doesn't matter to me. No, but
Yeah,
I could see color, but
I think I'm following.
I can, the dash line, I
Yeah.
made sure, just in the event this would have happened. So there's the dotted line, I should say, is the line forward of which a fence shall not extend. Okay, now we have 2 lots here, 2 different corner lots. On one side, at 4005, you see that the widest part is actually the front of the lot. Okay, and on the Tornquist lot, as we discussed, the narrowest width is the front. So this definition and this change is flexible. It allows you to apply the ordinance appropriately. The blue lines, or I'm sorry, the heavy solid line that runs along Brookfield Drive is the location where a 6-foot fence is allowed, or any fence over 4 feet. Okay, and but as long as it doesn't get closer to Carrick Court, then that red line, you can't pop in front of that red line, the dashed line. Got it?
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think I follow all that, but just for clarification, so is it correct that under current ordinance and also with this amendment, no fences at all are allowed in the front?
No, fences below 4 feet are allowed in the front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, within the actual front yard, I think it might be 3 feet. Is
It's
that,
4 foot.
4 foot.
is it 4?
It's 4 foot.
Okay,
Okay,
I,
so you can have a 4-foot fence in the front yard.
yes,
Okay.
yes, you can. So if you look at the bottom of page 2, there's an amendment to the definition section, and there's a definition for lot, comma, front of, or front of lot. And it means the side or sides. Well, let's skip all that.
Yeah.
A corner lot shall be deemed normally to front upon a street on which it has the least dimension. Okay. The town attorney said, I don't like that term normally. Let's just say what we want to say. So we said a corner lot shall be deemed to front upon the street on which it has the least dimension, except that if in the application of the above section, in other words, in a case where you have fences over 4 foot tall, the zoning administrator may establish a different front of lot upon finding that the principal building, that's a technical term, but it means the house, on the lot faces the side with the greatest dimension. So that covers address number 4005, that situation.
Mhm.
So we feel we have a pretty good solution to this problem that clarifies it and gives us, because we'd have to administer it, gives us what we would need. You would never have to administer a fence issue. It's just not something that comes before a planning commission, but so we would ask that you ask us any questions if you have, and if you feel comfortable with it, to offer a positive recommendation to the
I just have
commissioners.
one technical question. Rather than getting in all this, the lease signage and everything, why aren't we calling the front lot where the postal service has deemed the front of the house is?
because it's not relevant to all the various zoning objectives that the planning commission might have. I've seen that before. People say, what's this side that has the address or the address? And, but, you know, that may make sense, except for when you put a fence right along the front of the house, because the postage comes from the other side, the side door. Yeah, so
And the
we-
post office doesn't deliver in town, in the main part of town at all.
we have,
You get a post office box.
we have a unique opportunity here to actually see something administered in the field and then respond by making code provisions based on actual real life experience. So this is golden when we get to a chance like this.
Adjusting the code.
Any other questions, Mr. Comments?
Just comment. Two things. I just wanted to state that I really like the diagram. I think it's great. I know we don't have anything like that in our code right now. Going forward, if we were to do this, if you or anyone on staff need any guidance with ensuring that the document falls under I forget the exact, it's 508 compliance. It's a government requirement for visual impairment. I don't know if that would fall under Emmitsburg, but I can help you with that. I have experience with that as a government contractor. So thank you. And I just wanted to thank everybody involved, starting with the Turnquist with their presentations at multiple meetings. They were well prepared. Fantastic presentation. I wanted to thank the Board of Appeals for having I don't know the word I'm looking for. Their solution to investigate this and question the necessity of changing the code was perfect in my opinion. So new staff as well. Thank you for looking into this. And they're not listening to me, but that's okay.
They are out of one of your.
Okay. So, that's all I have. Thank you.
Questions as a citizen, not as a planning commission member? Would you like me to go down there and speak? Or am I okay here?
I think you're safe there.
Go ahead.
All right, 1740-060, the new paragraph that's there on page 205. Is that in addition to the existing paragraph? It's 1740-060?
Yes.
It's in addition to, so that other paragraph will remain.
Okay, I'm sorry. Could you turn on your mic, Valerie? Yes.
Is it working?
Yeah.
There you go.
Red is working.
Okay, so that paragraph will remain, because otherwise, if you take out that paragraph, it talks about the 3 foot and the 10 foot or 6 foot high fences. And then under definitions, I think we clarified what a corner lot is, but I don't think we clarified interior or through lots. What type of fence is allowed on an interior or through lot when they abut 2 public streets? Because it says an interior lot has 2 front yards. Because it has 2 frontages because it abuts 2 public streets. Right, so it has 2 frontages. Right. and
2 front of lots, but only 1 front yard. But so in that case, for a through lot, a lot that is connected, that connects to 2 streets, you cannot put a 6-foot fence on either one. Both are considered a public way, and both are considered front of lot, and both are off limits for 6-foot fences. So you might say, was there examples around town of that? in
Well, that would
town?
mean none of my new neighbors on Brookfield could have a fence in their backyard. Zach had specifically told me they would be allowed to have a fence, even though I couldn't because I was a corner, that they would be allowed to have a 6-foot fence in the rear yard along Brookfield on a through lot, is what he told me. And I don't think the policy is clear. Like, so we've cleared it up for corner lots, but we didn't address through lots.
And I don't think they need to be addressed. I mean,
But the actual request from the Board of Appeals was corner lots and through lots. because the discussion was brought up, the Valley Butler, the next discussion up then, and other comments were made about the lots that back up to Iverstown Road and so forth.
Yeah, because it just wasn't really addressed in the policy. And that dark line on the map at 4,000, is that the property? Is that where the 6 foot is allowed?
Yes,
Where is the 35 feet mark?
it's not on this.
Okay.
It would just confuse things. It's just doing the explanation illustration at the rear.
Gotcha. You know, the new homes that they built on
So-
Brookfield.
Yeah.
So are you speaking as the applicant or are you?
The
speaking-
applicant. I'm the applicant.
Right, do we even have an applicant in this?
On this one, we don't, because this is strictly an ordinance here.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it clarifies corner lots, but it still leaves through lots really saying that they can't have a 6 foot fence. And there's already 6 foot fence. Everybody has it already.
As I recall, there was some questions about line of sight and so forth issues. That's not even relevant at this point, I don't think.
So we drafted the code provision that the Board of Town Commissioners specifically asked us to address, the corner
okay.
lots. There are a number of changes to the code that could be beneficial, but each of them, what the suggestion is here is that we change the code to allow something that doesn't exist today. And that's not the direction we were given by the commissioners. These fences, they may have been built without the proper zoning authority, but they exist and they probably ought to be legalized through some way. But that's not what we were charged with and didn't think through. Najila and I would actually like to talk with the Planning Commission about a number of zoning changes
Sure.
to bring to you.
Okay.
And I think something like this, I'd like to think through in a more coordinated fashion and involve the
Right.
HOAs and affected property owners rather than on the fly.
Yeah.
But this actually responds to specific requests from the mayor and commissioners.
So even if we approve this evening, there's nothing to prevent other text amendments from being done in the future. I mean,
Right.
it can always be amended.
And do we have to vote as these two separate issues? So we vote to add the one and adjust the other. These are separate votes.
Oh, no, I would take these as one, as
Okay.
a set of text
One
amendments.
amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more question. It's a procedural question, Mr. Chair. So if this zoning text amendment were to be approved this evening, the next steps then would be for it to go ultimately to the Board of Commissioners for final vote. Is that correct?
Yes, they would, I don't know what the procedure there is, but they may introduce it, then have a second reading and then vote but actually, yeah, you don't hold public hearings for text amendments in Emmitsburg. So you can make a motion to transmit a favorable recommendation of this change. And then the town attorney will write this up into your formal ordinance language and place it in front of the Board of Commissioners along with some type of resolution.
Great.
And they would act on it.
Thank you. I just wanted to put that out in the open because this potentially could be going back to the Board of Commissioners. I will abstain this evening. Looking at a potential vote, assuming it's passing.
Yeah, I
I
momentarily forgot
Yeah.
that we are really recommending this to the town commissioners.
so that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments? Someone like to make a motion?
I'm just trying to figure out how to word it.
You could word it something like a motion to approve the text amendments
for
As
section
outlined in the
17.40.
staff memo.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the text amendments to chapter 17.40 as presented in the staff memo.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the text amendment for 17.40.060 and 17.04.020 as outlined in the staff memo. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So that concludes our business for this evening. Are we,
One absent.
are we? That's okay. Are we planning to have a February meeting? Do we know yet?
So we're strategizing along with Kathy, the town manager,
Okay,
on staffing and resources and all. But we would like to bring to you for your review, a work program for the planning commission for 2023, focusing on what your priorities are. And they may not be our priorities, but at least we want to have a deliberation about them. There are text amendments that we feel are important, and we hinted at least 3 of them tonight. I mean, the forest conservation needs to be brought up, the site plan amendment process, the through lot fences. But there are a number of other things too, but there's also the comprehensive plan that the mayor would like us to embark on this year. We're not going to finish it in the year, but we want to get started on it, at least lay out a game plan for how we do that, how we marshal resources, how we alert the public that we're going to enter into this important planning process. There are a couple of other things.
that sounds like plenty.
No, yeah, we don't, I mean, that's the thing, if, we don't want to overburden you, but it may be that you have a meeting each month.
Yeah,
Maybe
that-
take
okay.
August off for, holiday, but
I just brought that up because historically, we would just discuss this at the end of every meeting, but so I just brought it up. That's all.
Oh.
We didn't always have monthly meetings in the past. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes we would skip, so I
And
was
you-
just,
only required to meet at least once a quarter by
Yeah,
state law.
yeah,
so,
Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that.
so just as a heads up for everybody. Looks like we're meeting next month.
Okay.
All right.
We actually thought we would just next month talk about this work program idea.
Yeah.
And maybe even,
Sounds
we
good.
might even have some of the stuff ready for you. Yeah, so we'll leave it at that. We'll
Yeah.
tease you a little bit.
Yeah.
We might come up with.
That's a good teaser. Good teaser. So just as a point of information, the new county executive, Jessica Fitzwater, formed a transition team to help develop some guidelines or some initiatives for her to follow during her term of office. And they deal with sustainability, economic development, workforce development, education, health, housing, and probably some other stuff I'm forgetting, public safety. So I was fortunate enough to be appointed as co-chair of the housing committee, housing and quality of life, actually. So we're in the process of developing ideas for the county executive to undertake during her term. But there's a portal. The reason I'm bringing this up, there's a portal on the county website. If anybody wishes to put forth any ideas for what the county should be doing during the next term or terms, you can go to this portal and enter your suggestion, your advice, or whatever it is, and it will certainly be taken into account. We're supposed to have our report to her by the end of February, early March. So there's still time for comments if anybody wants to make any. But my particular realm is housing, so I'm dealing with housing policy in my committee. So maybe we'll have another annexation before us this year.
Wow. Well, the housing is certainly important. We have to do a housing element, a housing chapter this
Yes.
year in the new comprehensive plan
Mhm.
by state law.
Yeah.
So that's a new requirement. No.
So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. If you go to the county's website and you click on the county executive's photo, it takes you to the portal. If you want to make any suggestions under any of those topics, we will listen. Any other comments from commissioners before we adjourn?
I turned down.
Nothing else? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.